On this video, I'm going to continue what we've been doing in the book of Job. We have been looking at what Job's life used to be like. And this is in chapter 29, how he's recalling his past and what he experienced in the past and the happy life that he had. And we worked our way up to verse 7. He talks about how at that time his lamp was shining upon his head. Furthermore, he said, it was like in the days of my youth, and I had this conversation with God in my tent, and the children were about me, and my steps were washed in butter. Everything was great, everything was prosperous. But then he continues to describe in more detail, beginning in verse 7 now, of what his life was like when he was in prosperity. But Seti Sha'ar Ale Karet, when I went forth to the gate of the city, or into the gate of the city. Bet Seti is from Yatsah, to go forth. We have an inseparable preposition in the bait. The yod has elided, and Sate puts it in a construct. So we have a cow infinitive construct, when I went forth, or in my going forth. And the E is your pronominal suffix, first person singular. So when I went forth unto the gate, unto the city, or to the gate unto the city, Birchov Achin Moshavi, when I prepared my seat in the broad place, or in the broad place, I prepared my seat. Achin is from the middle weak verb kun. It's a first person singular, a cow imperfect, first person singular from kun. I should say a Hifil imperfect, first person singular from kun. So when I cause to prepare my seat in the broad place. In verse 7, as we look at what Job is saying, notice he once had great influence over those he lived with, both the young and the old, he will go on to say. And he would sit at the entrance to the city where legal business and legal transactions took place. He would decide cases there as one who was highly esteemed in the community. So he had a great position, is what he was saying at one time in doing that. And then the text goes on, how the young men saw him. Notice, and they would hide themselves. Ra'uni ne'arim v'nechbahu v'shishim kamu amadu. That is, the young men saw me and hid themselves. Ra'uni is from the root ra'ah, a lamed hey root, to see. And here we have the pronominal suffix, first person singular, in the ni here. So the young men, the naharim, saw me. Here we have, like I said, the cow, a perfect third common plural from ra'ah. The hey, by the way, has elided, and the ni is just your pronominal suffix, as we said, first person singular. So the young men saw me, and nechbahu, they hid themselves. From haba, to hide, we have a nifal, a perfect third common plural from chaba. So they hid themselves. Vi shishim kamu amadu. And the aged ones, the old people, rose and stood. Kamu is from a kum, to stand, a middle weak verb. It's a cow perfect third common plural from kum, and amadu is the same, a cow perfect third common plural from amad. The age people, the aged, would stand. In that culture, the aged people were respected. And it's interesting, in our culture, it's sort of the opposite. It's more the younger people are respected. The older people don't seem to have that respect, but not so in the ancient Near East and in Job's time. So standing was also a sign of respect for a passing dignitary, and even the elderly, who were held in great respect, stood up until Job had seated himself, which was also a sign of respect. I never forget, years ago, we were pastoring part time, or we were doing an interim in a church in Pennsylvania. And when we came out to preach, everybody stood up. And it was sort of shocking. And the first day, my wife Janet said, "Why are they standing? What's happening?" Because that had never happened before. And they said, "Well, we stand when the pastor comes out because we respect the office." It wasn't a worship of me or any human, it was just a respect for the office. And I think it's the same thing here. The elderly stood as a respect for the office that Job had had. So we continue then in verse 9. Sarim, Atsaru, Vemilim, princes held back with words, or held back from talking. V'chaf Yasimu Lefihim, and they laid their hand to their mouth. That is a time, something like that, that they wanted to be quiet with respect. Notice sarim is your masculine plural from the noun meaning prince, sar. Atsuru is the cow perfect third, the common plural from atsar, to refrain with words. So they were quiet, and they placed their hand upon their mouth. Yasimu is the middle weak verb seem, cow imperfect third, or cow imperfect third masculine plural from seem. And in some of your archaeological findings, when a king would come, there would often be a picture of putting the hand over the mouth, which meant it was respect and you are refrained from speaking. So this is the thought that's going on in verse 9 as well. That is, people would stop talking, even in the middle of a sentence, it seems, if a person they respected came up to them. Such was the case of Job, is his point and his uh, argument, or his summary at this point. So then in verse 10, Kol Neharim, or Negidim, Kol Negidim Nechbahu, the voice of the nobles became quiet, was hushed. U Leshonam Lechika davera, and their tongue cleaved to the roof of their mouth. In other words, they didn't talk or speak. The voice of the nobles, here we have two nouns in construct, kol, negidim, masculine plural, from nagad, nagid, the nobles. So the voice of the nobles, nechbahu. Nechbahu is from chaba, to be quiet. Again, to hide themselves, being more quiet. A nifal, perfect, third common plural from chaba. And their tongue to the roof, cleave to the roof of their mouth. Daveka is the cow, perfect, third feminine singular from davak, to cleave. So their tongue cleave to their mouth. It's the same idea in Genesis chapter 2 of husband and wife cleaving to each other, davak. And then as we think about verse 10 again, in terms of commentary, the highest officials of the city hushed when they were speaking with Job's presenting himself, or Job's appearance. Their tongues cleave to their mouth out of nervousness, probably, and high respect for Job. They were silenced in his presence. Again, is the thought. So he's going to be contrasting that past with what's going on in the present. And then we continue reading, seeing how Job was a helper of those that were needy. Ki amaleit ani mishaveya, because I rescued the poor who cried. Malet is from malat, to rescue. We have the PL imperfect first common singular from malat. Notice the hatef pathak followed by the pathak, the a vowel, and the doubling of the middle radical and the tseri, indicative of a PL stem. For I delivered the poor, the one who cried. Meshaveya is your PL participle masculine singular from shava, to cry. Again, the mem prefix, the shava, the pathak, and the doubling of the middle radical, indicative of a PL, a participle. Veya tom velo ozer lo. And not only that, I deliver not only the poor, but the fatherless. In Hebrew scriptures, to love the poor and the fatherless is applauded. So the fatherless and one that had no helper. Ozer is a cow participle masculine singular from azar, to help. And so what he's saying here is he delivered both the poor and the fatherless. And then goes on to talk about how he took care of widows. Notice the next verse, verse 12. Birchat oved alai tavo. The blessing of the one that was ready to perish came unto me. And the cause of the widows, v'lev almanah arnein. That is, the heart of the widows sang for joy, or I caused the heart of the widows to sing for joy. Notice here, tavo, the blessing of the one who was perishing, is from bo, a middle weak verb, a third cow imperfect third feminine singular from bo, and then the blessing of the one perishing. Oved is your cow participle masculine singular. Notice the o vowel followed by the tsere. And the heart of the widow, velev almanah, two nouns in construct again, arnain. That is, I caused to sing for joy. Notice ranan means to sing joyously. And here we have a hifil imperfect first common singular with the a seri pattern, the a e vowel pattern, indicative of the hifil. So I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. And what he's really looking at here is how those that were ready to perish, he was ready to help. And he did not take advantage of widows, but always helped them when they were in need. And that's commended all the way through the Hebrew Bible, helping the poor. Pure religion in the New Testament is to visit the fatherless and the widows. In the book of James, we have that. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll pick it up in verse 14 next time. I'm trying to hold these videos to about 15 minutes because otherwise it can get maybe too long. So I hope this is helpful in the grammar and also the commentary. Thank you.